The 2024 election season has finally found a way to take itself out of neutral. I mean, both candidates have been busy, specifically talking about old Uncle Joe holding a sparsely attended rally in, of all places, Philadelphia. Joe, in your own backyard, you can literally draw dozens of people. Meanwhile, Trump, on the other hand, will go ahead and pack a park in the heart of the Bronx. It looks a little bit bad on you, but when you have all of the media behind you, just astroturfing your popularity, that's one thing, but then when you can't stick to the script and you continue to find new and interesting ways to show everybody that you are not mentally fit to be the leader of the free world, people are starting to put one and two together, and that's really going to get driven home at the end of June with that debate. If it's going to happen, man, it's going to be the worst thing for this campaign, but that's something that I am praying for. But there were stumbles, stammers, and just good old Joe being Joe up there in Philadelphia. And, well, for all of the brain farts that he had, and there were quite a few, him just rewriting history once again. I was intrinsic. I was basically Martin Luther King Jr.'s number two. I was up there on the balcony. I told him to duck, but I really should have sooner. But between that and his brain just completely melting, but for him to utter this, okay, now what do you think Trump would have done if black Americans had stormed the Capitol? I don't think he'd be talking about pardons. How do we know any of that stuff? And okay, cool. So what, are you mad that there weren't more minorities there for your police staff that you inherited? Didn't crack more people's heads? Is this the same guy who wanted to tear gas you as you peacefully protested George Floyd's murder? George Floyd's overdose are we talking about in those peaceful, fiery but peaceful protests? Yeah, okay, Joe, you keep on trying to angle for that black vote and continue to preach to the converted. Meanwhile, the people that are out there, are seeing what's going on with Trump. And I don't know, maybe by the time that you see this, I'm recording this Wednesday evening, so who knows if the deliberations are already done and dusted, but the first of many legal hurdles Trump is going to have to overcome, and quite frankly, it's a bit of a hurdle because Jonathan Turley highlights right here, McCann just delivered the coup de grace of instructions. He said that there is no need to agree on what occurred. They can disagree on what crime was among the three choices. Thus, that means they could split 4-4-4, and he will still treat them as unanimous. So the jury doesn't have to come to a unanimous conclusion. They just have to come to a conclusion that Trump did something wrong. They don't necessarily have to agree on what he did wrong, but as long as they think that he did something wrong, Trump will be found guilty. This is such a clown show that I don't even know where to begin. Mostly because we're not going to get a definitive conclusion, even when the jury ultimately renders their verdict in one direction or not. Who knows? Because there's going to be appeals. Then we're going to have to figure out, what does this ultimately mean in the grand scheme of things? But we'll have to save that for another video because regardless, a guilty or not guilty verdict is going to warrant a much more full breakdown. But we're talking about elections, man, because regardless of this outcome, Trump is still going to be on the ballot. He just might not be free for that debate at the end of the month. Who quite knows for sure? While the American people and several other people have been woken up by this trial and by the total miscarriage of justice, there's still some dyed-in-the-wall Biden supporters that are out there. And most famously, well, rather infamously in the past couple of days, Robert De Niro. I hate Trump. He's a bum. I don't like him. He's really taking it to the next level with this absolutely spurgy press conference that he held outside the Trump trial. Robert De Niro headlines bizarre Biden campaign presser outside the Trump trial. He's an idiot, and I don't like him. Now that he's officially on the Biden-Harris campaign trail, has a surrogate, which is absolutely wild to think anybody could coherently make a claim that Biden would be a better choice than Trump under any metric. There's no metric at all. Even if you hate Trump, like Robert De Niro, with every fiber of your being, there's no way that you could say that this dude is a better president than Trump. There's nothing, okay, outside of just simple emotional appeals. And spoiler, that's what Bobby decided to deliver. So Oscar-winning actor Robert De Niro became the face of the Biden campaign Tuesday, fronting a tumultuous press conference outside of Manhattan courthouse where former President Donald Trump's defense team made its closing arguments in the hush money trial, which isn't really about hush money. It's more or less a misdemeanor that stupid fat Alvin Bragg decided to ratchet up to a felony because he bought hook, line, and sinker the nonsense of Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels. Like I said, that video is forthcoming and necessary down the road. We're just talking about the stupidity of celebrities. After weeks of avoiding commenting on the case against Trump outside on jabs on social media, the Biden campaign went big by announcing a press availability with special guests on the day of closing arguments. Could you imagine that? The Biden campaign, Trump's biggest political opponent, mocking one of the biggest political persecutions going on in the world right now. I think it's wild to think, with the jury expected to receive the case on Wednesday, which they ultimately ended up doing. And there's Karen De Niro right there pointing and complaining about car alarms going off in the background. But we're not here today because of what's going on over there. That's why you staged everything outside the courtroom. Interesting, right? Biden campaign communication director Michael Tyler disingenuously told reporters, well, at least you're upright and honest about that, indicating the courthouse, we're here today because you all are here. Yeah, and because if you put Biden outside of anything, people aren't turning out unless you're paying for them to turn out. De Niro, 80, has already narrated ads for the Biden campaign, told reporters Tuesday that Trump wants to sow total chaos. He wants to not only he's not just out to destroy the city, but all of America. And expanding his argument to say eventually he could destroy the whole world. Oh my God. I don't mean to scare you, but here, let me be as hyperbolic as humanly possible. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. Look, I got you. Pull my finger. Got you. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms goodbye that we all take for granted. Yeah, just like he did the first time around, huh? And elections, forget about it. It's over. It's done. If he gets in, I can tell you right now, he's never going to leave. He's never going to leave. You know that. He will never leave. Yeah, and like we have proof that if the guy loses an election, he won't leave the office. Yeah, no, this time's going to be different, right? Because Robert De Niro said so. Between reading from his prepared remarks, which included calling the 77-year-old Trump a clown. See, that one I wrote for myself, off the cuff. A grubby real estate hustler and the tyrant, the raging bull star. Oh my God, that's ancient shit, man. Listen. De Niro is one of my favorite actors, literally ever. He's a part of so many of my favorite films, but to be completely honest, man, the second half of this dude's career has had more bombs attached to it than the Obama administration. Like, come on. The fact that we need to run back a film from the 70s, say that he's a star of it, for as great as Raging Bull is, but this was the speech from the administration, who everybody thought was a rebel for a long time, just ends up being one of the biggest corporate shills. It's kind of pathetic. I don't know what's actually worse, just the outright simping Mark Hamill did, and the utter character assassination of Luke Skywalker writ large, and done even better than Disney could have hoped to. Or you have the octogenarian Travis Bickle come to the conclusion that maybe the establishment isn't so bad. Protesters who chanted F Joe Biden and De Niro is a gangster, okay, in an attempt to drown out the presser. And yeah, the previously mentioned car alarm that was going on in the background. You're an idiot, the Goodfellas actor yelled at one protester who accused De Niro of being a paid actor at the DNC. Well, he kind of opened his speech by saying, now I'm officially a part of the Harris-Biden campaign. So it's like, yeah, okay. And suggests he had unsavory ties to convicted pedo Jeff Epps. Yeah, not entirely sure if he went to the island or not. I haven't seen him on any list. But in Hollywood, how many degrees do you have to be away from any of that stuff going on to really have connections to it? So whatever. De Niro was accompanied by law enforcement officers who battled Trump supporters, yes, in the riot of the Capitol at January 6th, yes, where all of that death and destruction went down. All right, we don't want to talk about the only body who died on the premise that day, right? I came here today to remind Americans of what Donald Trump is capable and the violence that he unleashed on all of America in January 6, 2024. Now, former DC cop Michael Fanone said, is that the goof with the autistic scribbles that he has all over his body? That's fantastic. Americans need a wake-up call. This is not a drill. Former, Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, who unsuccessfully ran for Congress as a Democrat in Maryland. Bruh, you can't get elected as a Dem in Maryland? How bad are your politics? Holy. Since jury selection of the Manhattan trial began, to April 15th, Trump has gone from leading Biden head-to-head by 0.3 percentage points in the Real Clear Politics national polling average to 1.1 percentage points this past Friday. And after this, guilty or not guilty verdict that will come down sometime this week, or maybe it'll be a hung jury, and then this will be one of the other trials that just get pushed off indefinitely. Because it's either this one or the Georgia case that is far and away the weakest. Some of the Fed ones, like obviously the one around, he unleashed the violence on January 6th. Well, you got to prove that in any form or fashion. Something that you guys have failed to do time and time again. But of course, the documents case, that'll eventually have to come up. And that one, well, they can get off on a few different technicalities, but this is kind of where we're at this point in time. Sitting around and seeing how corrupt the justice system is, because if it's any indication as to how corrupt our political class is, well, we're going to be in for an interesting second half to 2024. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.